seagulls follow the shore, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
And as we say now in my country, they brought the buzz and they left the buzz in front of the goal.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. Never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Good morning and welcome to the Bhoycie Bus Sunday Blether. I am your host David Logue and I am joined by my usual Super Sunday lineup, starting off with Mr. Friday Night, Phil McGinley. How are you doing, man? You doing good?
I am all good, mate. I'm happy to be on board again. Nice lovely day today in sunny Glasgow. No Celtic really to talk about in terms of like games. We've got one a national break we need to sit through, but I'm sure we'll find a way to get through this, and there's always something to talk about when it comes to Celtic. So looking forward to it as always, David.
Always something to talk about, mate. And of course, we are also joined by the face that runs the place, the dirtiest player in the game, the styling, profiling, limousine riding, jet flying, wheeling, dealing, kiss stealing, son of a gun. Woo! Regan Stevenson. Regan, do you like that intro, mate? Did you like
David,
that?
it's good to be on. Thank you for the great intro there. That was a good intro.
I heard you were at the game yesterday, mate.
I think you definitely done that, David.
Did you enjoy the game yesterday, mate? I heard you were there.
It was pretty boring, but I'm glad Celtic got 3 goals and they done well.
Yeah.
I think it was pretty boring, but I think, like I said, 3 points in a big game on Tuesday night against Spain. Viva España.
And of course, guys, we've got the bad guy. We've got the judge, Mark Kearney. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, mate. Yourself? How are you guys doing? You all doing good?
I'm doing fine, man. I'm doing absolutely fine, yeah.
Brilliant.
Looking forward to finding things to talk about Celtic because, of course, it's the international break. But we've got plenty to talk about. So what's coming up in today's show, guys? Well, Celtic injury concerns continue with Anthony Ralston joining a long list of injured Celts. A former Watford man had the chance to be one of Ange's first signings. And you'll never walk alone with Celtic as 4,000 fans travel down to Anfield to watch the Celtic Legends play Liverpool Legends. Kyogo only concentrating on Celtic for after another Japan snub. And Callum McGregor makes his 50th appearance to earn his place at the Hampden Hall of Fame. But before we do all that, Phil, you know what time it is, my man?
So that good stuff time.
It's all that good stuff time. So make sure you hit that like button and hit that wee notification bell in the corner there so you can get all the Bhoycie Bus just jumping at you and saying, right, that's us live. So you make sure that you just do that. You can subscribe. But all our content is free, guys. Remember that all our content is free. But if you want to help the Bhoycie Bus just a little bit, keep those wheels running, just hit that wee subscribe button and become a Bhoycie Bus member. Do that thing, Phil. We've got
Alan Woods, we've got 1888 CFC, we've got Jim C. Who else have we got that I've not said already? Martin K, Scott Cameron, Jim Dolan. I think I've covered. Oh wait, the Bhoycie Bus themselves are members as well. Imagine that. There you go.
And a massive big shout out to our sponsors at piesports.com. Get your tasty pastry treats delivered straight to your door with a tasty 12.5% off your order with the Bus 1888 in the wee discount code bit there, okay? And make sure, I think, is it today's the final day? Is it deadline day, Phil, for the Bhoycie Bus t-shirt?
Well, Russell said Friday, and then he said it'll probably continue on after that. But I believe Russell is planning on being on today at some point, like this evening. Maybe he'll clarify it then.
Oh,
but yeah, I will bring the shut up on screen anyway if you want to run through that.
Yep,
there it
we've got
is
the Bhoycie
there.
Bus t-shirt. There we go, taking inspiration from the iconic Bumblebee kits. So if you want to get a last minute order in, just make it a sneaky wee order in there. Make sure you send an email to crookedarm@ymail.com. It's £40 to PayPal at crookedarm@ymail.com. I'm sure Bhoycie could sneak in another couple of orders for you before we put in the pre-order to the guys that are getting that sorted for us. Right.
Yep.
That's not all out the way, guys. So let's get the show on the road. Okay, so brutally honest, Troy Deeney has confessed that he hasn't got everything he wanted from his signing at Birmingham, and he went on to go on to say that when he had left the Hornets in the summer of 2021 after helping the club where he spent 11 years to return to the English Premier League, that summer marked an overhaul at Celtic Park with Ange Postecoglou arriving in Glasgow to rebuild the side that he stepped into the hot seat to replace Neil Lennon. Now, Troy Deeney was apparently given an offer to come to Celtic that summer.
Your microphones went like underwater, David.
Oh, is it?
No,
How are we doing?
it's fine
now?
That's fair now.
You want me to go through that again, guys?
No, I heard that up to you could have signed for.
Yep, so Troy Deeney could have signed that summer that Ange Postecoglou came to do the rebuild. Now, Mark, would Troy Deeney have been a successful signing for Celtic? Would that have been a good start to Ange's regime to rebuild the squad?
I know fuck all about him, mate. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know anything about him. But what I will say is, I mean, the players we've signed, I mean, Giakoumakis and Kyogo got signed last summer. So the players he signed done a great job, you know what I mean? So I'm not entirely sure how he'd fit into the system. But if Ange wanted him, I'm pretty sure he'd probably fit in the system just nicely. But to be honest with you, if we're signing guys that are playing for Birmingham and Wolves and all the rest of it, I mean, no thanks. You know what I mean? If he's ended up at Birmingham, then he's no good enough for Celtic, in my opinion. Far from it. I don't even know what division they're in, to be honest with you, but God, and they play in front of 40 fans, didn't they? That's a Diddy club if ever you've seen one, you know what I mean? No thanks. But Giakoumakis was, Kyogo was always going to be the first choice striker last season. We spent £4 million on that boy, and he was brought in from Japan to showcase Japanese football and the standard of what they had. So he knew Ange knew what he was doing. He was signing a player that kind of typified his style of play and a player he really wanted. So this guy, Deeney, or whatever his name is, he would have been second choice like Giakoumakis. But Giakoumakis came in, did a fantastic job. Now, you mentioned that he's come out and says that he's not getting what he wants for Birmingham. I'm not surprised. I mean, the best thing about that place is probably the exit, but we don't. These kind of players don't suit Ange, because what we found out is when players start talking in the press about being unhappy or unsettled, I mean, he gets shot at them straight away. So I think we've probably dodged a bullet there. He might score 100 goals for them. I really don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, the two players we got in last season, strikers-wise, were two class acts in terms of Scottish football level. So for me, no. you can tell he's scramming all he wants that he could have played for Celtic, but look sitting there for trophies and playing for 60,000 fans, and he can watch us on Sky Sports like everybody else.
Regan, would have Troy Deeney been a Joe Hart like figure, or would he have been a more of a Carrot and Cole figure if he'd came to Celtic that season?
Yeah, I believe that he's quite a bad guy to have around the dressing room. To be honest, I've read quite a bit about him, and I've heard that he's been Watford kind of sacked their managers. He's the kind of first player that all the players kind of go to, and what they all kind of say, right, we're going to get this guy out. I don't think he would have suited Celtic, and I'm right. I think I'm right in saying this, but I think he's about 36 years of age, is that right? So
must be about that,
34. I'm looking at his Wikipedia profile right now.
He's had some paper around if he's only 34.
34. I mean, it could be 44, but I don't think he suits the way that Ange plays. He just screams to be somebody like I'll be a duty or something like that. I don't think he would have suited Celtic at all. And I'm glad that they signed Kyogo and they signed Giakoumakis, because if they signed Troy Deeney, that is one that I would say is a very underwhelming signing. And I would even go as far to say that I don't think Ange Postecoglou would have said, I want Troy Deeney, you better get Troy Deeney. I think that would have been a Celtic Football Club signing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right there, Regan. I couldn't imagine Troy Deeney at the top of Ange's get list. But Phil, I mean, let's imagine that he did sign for Celtic. Would that have been seen as an underwhelming start to Ange's reign if a Troy Deeney came in right after we'd just signed a McCarthy, who we questioned was he even an Ange signing? And even when Joe Hart signed after him, there was a lot of fans split on is Joe Hart the kind of guy we needed at the club. Obviously, he's went on to be a very good servant of the club. You know, a locker room leader, and a bit of a steady, foundation at the back. I don't know if he had signed a Troy Deeney after the back of them, I'd been a bit worried that is this list of players that we've just dusted off the transfer shelf, and just I would have felt it would have been an underwhelming signing personally.
Yeah, I would have grouped him in alongside Hart and McCarthy, where it felt like we needed bodies at the time, and they've said to Ange, we can get these guys, and Ange just obviously gave them the okay. He would have probably been in that one. Obviously, Hart turned out really, really well, and he was rumoured to be joining us the year before anyway. He was on that list, so it does strike me what you just said there, where Celtic have got a list of players that they just kind of wheel out where, we can get this guy. I think Troy Deeney would have been that one, because, the only things I associate Troy Deeney with is he scored that goal for Watford against Leicester, the playoff game where Leicester missed a penalty in 30 seconds later, and Watford scored. Yeah, in the playoff semi-final. And also, he's got a bit of a reputation as a bit of a bad boy, essentially. He clashed with a lot of referees, I'd imagine. So I think he'd have a disappointing problem. I know in England, particularly with Arsenal, he tried his best to make Watford and Arsenal some kind of huge rivalry for a few years, where I think he scored a winning goal against them, and for years after that, he was always like a target for Arsenal fans. And yeah, he's a bit of a wind-up merchant. I think he would have just clashed a lot of referees and a lot of opposition players if he did come. Plus, I don't think he would have stayed for long. I think he would have done a one-season thing and then gone. Just a plaster to cover up a crack, essentially. I don't think he would have really stuck around. You used Carlton Cole as an example earlier on. I'd probably file him in that sort of category as well, a Carlton Cole type of player. Kind of glad we avoided that one. But that's when you said at the start, when you're going through what's come up today, you had the Watford player that could have been Ange's first sign. I'm racking my brain going, who's that? Is it Ryan Porteous? Because obviously he went to Watford recently. I'm like, was it him? When you said Troy Deeney, I did not see that coming, mate, at all. That swerved me big time.
I seen it the other day. He was on, I can't remember what podcast he'd been on, but he'd been on obviously some podcast down south. And it was another player another former player or current player that had the chance to play for Celtic and chose not to sign for us for whatever reason. But I question how much of the offer was really on the table. If it was just maybe look, Celtic are needing to sign some players, agents maybe tried to get him in there, and he's chose. I'm pretty sure Birmingham is his club that he supported as a youngster. So he was obviously going to go and pick them, and I'm rather glad that he did. But that's just a wee warm up conversation to have there on the Sunday Blether, guys. But let's move on to some more current Celtic playing staff. All right, so Anthony Ralston is just pulled out the Scotland squad, guys. He has joined the club's growing list of injured players, and starting to become a little bit of a concern. I believe we've got maybe 7 players sitting with wee niggly injuries and maybe some more serious injuries at the minute. Mark, is this becoming a concern for you? We're coming to the sort of tail end of the season. The players that we have currently with injuries of note is a Rio Hatate, who looked to have suffered a hamstring injury against Hibs. Aaron Moy, who missed the final game after the international break with an injury, and I'm pretty sure he's pulled out of the Australian squad. Daiza Maeda hasn't featured for Japan in the international duty due to a wee niggling injury. Greg Taylor, of course, is suffering by, looks like, perhaps a knee injury. And Carter Vickers was left out of the USA squad after Celtic and USA set-up had a conversation over his injury status. And Leila Bada pulled up in training with Israel. He tried to shake it off the injury, but admitted defeat over the weekend and has returned early to Glasgow to be assessed by the club. Is this becoming a bit of a concern that Ralston's now joined this ever-growing list at the end of the season, Mark?
Well, I and no. I, because I don't want to see any other players injured, and especially ones that I think should get game time. But I think Johnston's going to be number one choice anyway. So if he's got a bit for a few weeks, and as long as nothing happens to Johnston, that's what we can afford. I think we can afford some players being injured, but not like Abada, for talk's sake. I don't think we're going to start lighting candles if he's out for a couple of weeks. But when you mentioned guys like Rano Maeda, he was on the bench for Japan. So if you're on the bench, I think chances are you're just being kept to precaution. You'll probably not get a lot of game time because he's got something in the background niggling. But Cameron Carter-Vickers, man, I don't know about that until he just says it. Hopefully that's just something where Celtic have said, look, there's got to be no benefit to you or us if he travels, because his injury might flare up, but his fitness is actually okay, because otherwise they would just pull him out altogether. So it sounds like Celtic and the USA have came to a wee agreement there. The one that worries me is big worry for me is Hatate, but also Greg Taylor. I'm sorry, we can't play Burnaby against Rangers. That's just a scary prospect. I mean, God, I know he won a raffle, but he did give him the right to. Did they give him the privilege to play games like that? I think that's going to be a bit of a scary thought, him playing against Rangers, and we've still got a title to win, and we've still got a cup to win as well. You know what I mean? And I don't want to give them any encouragement for next season or give them any fuel to their fire that they think they're the better team, and how they think that I really don't know. You know what I mean? But I think Aaron Moy, I hope his issue, according to Ange before the break there, he was just saying they've just decided to give him a couple of weeks just rest, and that'll be good for him. But the worry for me is Hatate, because I don't think a midfield free of McGregor and Moy. Then the other option is going to be either Turnbull or O'Reilly, and I just think that's far too slow. You need Hatate and Moy there, you know what I mean? And you can't afford the Moy and another player who's lacking pace, or like for instance, Turnbull is normally his third touch is the pass that he makes, and O'Reilly's probably the same. You know, we can't afford that. I mean, we struggled against Hibs. They 10 men, so it's harder to play against that. But it was quite evident that the play was just so slow. We saw Jota hitting the side of his hips, and Kyogo was hitting some horns up in the air every couple of minutes because the play was just going so slow. They were getting marked out the game, and I don't think we can afford luxury players or raffle winners against Rangers. We need to go there with our strongest team. And I say Rangers like it's the only game I've got up to play, but the Rangers games at the end of the season are going to be the marquee games. And in terms of this season, the league's still to be won, and so is the Scottish Cup, but I don't want to give them any encouragement. So I think we need to get there with our best team, and I'm hoping that most of the injuries that you've named off there are probably just with niggles. Greg Taylor and Hatate, for me, is two massive players for Celtic that we can't afford to get injured. I'm sorry, that's two players that we really need back.
Yeah, Regan, we've been reasonably lucky with our injuries throughout the season. Is this just a bit of bad luck, or is this Ange's intense training and playing style beginning to take its toll on our players ending into the tail end of the season? We're going to our 43rd competitive game this season, and he's consistently had the same guys starting would you say this is just a bit of bad luck, or is it all kind of
It's
starting to tie
probably
in?
the second one you said there, David, the amount of times these guys are playing, because I don't want to be bad on Bernabei. I mean, Mark said he's a ruffle winner. I tend to agree with him, because I'm just playing Greg Taylor because he thinks I can't trust Bernabei to get Greg Taylor some game time where he's not playing. And the same with Rio Hatate, these guys are too important to the team. So there's going to become a time where these guys get injured. I know that McGregor's got the most minutes played in Europe under Brendan Rodgers and under Postecoglou as well, but there's going to come a point where these guys are going to pick up injuries, because you can't play 45 games a season and no be tired or fatigued by it. But I think the big thing I think this game against Ross County, I think we could probably go with Bernabei in there. But if there's a possibility that Rio and also Taylor is back for Rangers game, that'd be absolutely perfect, because we can't go into that game. But I suppose the Rangers game as well, all Celtic need to do is get a draw in that game. We don't need to win, but obviously it would be great to win. I got a ticket for that game on Friday, David. I was down at Celtic Park by 10:30 in the morning, and Celtic Park didn't open till 11 o'clock. I was down there. I was in there queuing at the door, so I'm sorted. I'm looking forward to it. I think, especially because there's going to be no Rangers fans there as well, David. So it's going to be a good game. But like Mark says, these two big Rangers games are going to be the big turning point for Celtic season.
Phil, touching on what Regan's just said there, could Ange perhaps have utilised his depth of squad a little bit better when we are in sort of these games where we're just kind of cruising? Allow players like CCV and Maeda and like a Taylor to get a wee bit more rest, and maybe give the likes of Barnaby, Kobayashi, your Awata, these guys could be getting a wee bit more game time, and as well as getting our main guys like CCV and that a rest when we're absolutely cruising.
I think from a fan point of view, we always want to see them get a bit more game time, but the fact is this, even though we've been winning games, there's been some games recently where it's been a bit more of a struggle than it needs to be. Start of the season, we were trashing teams, obviously beating teams like Dundee United 9-0 and stuff like that. But other than that, I mean, the St Mirren game the other week was our biggest win in recent weeks of the 5-1, but we were obviously trailing at half time. So it was like, okay, this is a bit of a slog. Hearts took the lead against us at Celtic Park. Hibs took the lead and we're doing it to 10 men, and we're struggling a wee bit. I think if we'd shot into a 3-goal lead quick in these sort of games, then I think we probably would have seen some of these players getting a bit more game time, and that's maybe contributed a wee bit. But at the same time, when it comes to injuries and that, like I know we always like to see, we prefer if they're not away on international duty, because there's always a risk of injury. And the list you've read out there kind of shows that we've been a bit unlucky with that one. But unfortunately, injuries can just happen anywhere, even playing for Celtic or even in training. I mean, the Hatate injury the other week was just a inconspicuous pass to the side, and he goes down. It's a hamstring injury with Hatate, I believe. Aye, so I mean, they could come anywhere, but I just think we'll just have a bad bit of luck here. Because I mean, the players are at the start of Ange's tenure. Remember, the players are having a lot of problems with fitness, adapting to it. I think now they're quite a well-oiled machine. I just think it's been a bit of bad luck that's hit them here. In terms of like obviously this Rangers game on the 8th of April, I think I saw Alan Wood saying that we can get through the 8th, even with maybe a couple of injuries, because as a home game, I think it spoke volumes for the game at New Year at Ibrox, a really intense atmosphere, a pure cauldron of hatred there, that when Taylor did go off injured, that Ange looked to his bench and went, Bernabei, natural left back. No, Juranovic, you're going on instead. But I think at home it's a bit different for us. If Bernabei did play in that game, I think we'd have just enough to it because it's the home game. But if it was Ibrox, I would be really concerned to say Ange kind of gave the game away back in January with that one, how he feels about Bernabei in that type of atmosphere. That would be a bit of a worry for me. But I agree with Alan Wood said earlier in the comments. I think we'll have enough to get through the 8th, even if there's a couple of players out, because indeed we've just got a vastly superior squad to them. We really do.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think the fact the international break is here gives them a little bit of time to assess and see where we're at. I mean, there's been no indication of how severe the injury to Takatati is. And obviously, like with Daizen Maeda, he still did fly to Japan. I think I seen a comment there saying that it was pointless him going out there. But the Japanese national side will want to assess the player for themselves. So no harm done if we can get two different sides of the story there and see what's going on. It's not really a bad thing, but yeah, I think what you're saying there, Phil, is correct. I think we've got a far superior squad that we can utilise, especially with the 9-point gap, with the way the team's been playing. I think we'll be fairly fine. Well, let's talk about some Celtic legends. Okay, so Celtic legends played Liverpool at Anfield in a charity game yesterday. It was resulting in a 2-0 victory to Liverpool. I'm just going to read out the starting 11 for that game. Had Buric, Lustig, Petrov, who was the captain, O'Day, Wallace, Crosas, Ledley, Izagiri, McGinn, Niall McGinn, Robbie Keane and Vinegar of Hesselink started that game yesterday with Given, Vega, Luvens, Naylor, Cy Ferry, Trevor Sinclair, Donnelly and Bratback, who were all on the bench. Well, what can we say about these legends like Cy Ferry and of course Vinegar of Hesselink? That's a great partnership to see on the lineup there. Mark, did you catch any of the game yesterday?
I actually watched it, mate. I watched it just to interest with nothing on. I thought I'd put a bit of Celtic on. I say Celtic very loosely. It was there's guys that now play for Celtic as Celtic strips. I mean, Dan O'Day. I mean, the penalty he gave away was just Dan O'Day. I mean, God, I don't know what he was trying to do. He just jumped in like he was jumping into bed. It was a really bad tackle. You know what I mean? And then it was terrible, mate. And you mentioned there Cy Ferry now played for Celtic, and Trevor Sinclair. Very good at Hesselink. I thought he was a brilliant striker.
Very good at Hesselink.
I love that guy, and I'll never forget he's winning against the Zombies. But well, that was the actual Rangers, I suppose, back then. But no, I watched it, and I thought Celtic were a better team. Actually, there's no doubt about it. Celtic were the better team. It's just they got a penalty, and then they got a goal given to them by Lustig, rolling back the years and falling his arse. And to be honest with you, I've seen a lot of people having digs about Steven Gerrard's class, but let's be honest here. The guy scored a goal. He's got to celebrate. I would be more worried about the fact that Celtic fans chose to fling bottles at him after scoring a goal in a friendly match. You know what I mean? That's my gripe. No anybody that's supposed to be classless, according to some of the comments I read online. I mean, the guy's all Rangers player and all Rangers manager, and he scored against Celtic and for the team that he loves, even though he supported Everton as a win. But no, I found the full thing. It could have been a nice rewatch if he'd won the match, but it was just a laugh. I was more listening to the commentators. I mean, some of their research. I mean, at one point they said that Mark Crosas never played a 14 game for Celtic. He was just there because he had a loose relationship with the club or something like that. And I was like, all right, I must have missed that. I'm sure I see that guy play about 30 times for Celtic. And okay, it was a good wee spectacle, mate. Nice sunny day, but like sitting. I bet a lot of people with sore heads waking up after all that travelling down there yesterday and back up again. I'm glad it wasn't me, mate, to be honest.
Well, it was all for a good cause. A full 100% of the proceeds raised will support a range of Celtic FC Foundation and LFC Foundation programmes, including schools, inclusive sport, social action, health and well-being, and food poverty. So it's it was all for a good cause, and it goes back down to our charitable roots. And of course, it was it looked like it was a good spectacle on I think it was on YouTube. Was it on YouTube yesterday, Regan?
Aye.
It was on Liverpool's YouTube channel. Aye. Liverpool's YouTube channel.
So what were your thoughts, Regan, on Stevie G noising up the Celtic fans? Were you bothered by it? Was it just a wee bit of fun for Steven Gerrard just to try and get under the fans' skin?
To be expected, David, because he's like Mark says, probably going to take the penalties, and he knows the Celtic fans are going to get wound up by him. So I think it's probably to be expected. I think it's probably been took out of proportion by everybody, because this guy's a Liverpool supporter, and he played for one half of Glasgow, so he knows that whatever happens today, he's going to noise up the set of supporters at the Celtic end. So, and I just think it's a charity game. It's a bit disappointing that some people threw stuff at him, but hey ho, that's football, isn't it? I mean, sometimes
I think that's terrible, but Regan, I don't think it is football. I've never went to a restaurant and flung a bottle at a waiter. I don't get why anybody would go to a football match and think it's okay to fling things at football players, and they don't represent me. I mean, that's not a Celtic. Well, that's a Celtic fan. They don't represent me or my thoughts on what a football fan should be. And I'll never get to the stage where I can just say, "Ah, well, that's football," and I accept it. I think it's disgusting. Luckily, there'll be cameras there, and hopefully, these guys never get let back in the football stadium again with a Celtic scarf. Anyway, that's my opinion.
I know that definitely. I just mean in terms of
it's the pure side. It's the pure side of football. You could say it's not something you want to see, but unfortunately, it is a. Well, I wouldn't say it's a part of the game, but it seems to be comes sometimes side by side when.
I mean,
but it's meant to be a bit of. I think it was probably meant to be a bit of banter, a bit of jest, a bit just trying to noise up the Celtic fans. And of course, it worked for some people. Steven Gerrard knew what he was going to get as a reaction, he was always like that as a bit of a player. He liked noising up his rivals, so he probably fully expected the reaction. But it's certainly not what you want to see from a football game, never mind a charity game. But Phil, was it all just a bit of banter yesterday? Or was it taken the wrong way by certain guys in the media?
I mean, I didn't see any of the game other than said clip of Gerrard celebrating, because I was on Twitter later in the day and I seen it doing the rounds all over my feed. A lot of people angry about it. I mean, Friday night when I was doing Bustalgia, I talked about Scott Brown's antagonistic ways, and I highlighted one game in particular where a season where we went on to win another treble, as we did under Brendan, and then it followed on with Lennon. At the end of the game, Ryan Kent takes a swipe at Brun, and even though we go and win that game and win the treble, Rangers fans were printing pictures of that punch on T-shirts and stuff like that. And it's like, there's lives of this. I saw them last night all over Twitter celebrating Gerrard, mocking the Celtic fans or celebrating in front of them. And it's like, see, when the real trophies are handed out at the end of this season, that's all that counts and that's all that matters. It just shows you the levels again when it comes to the mindset. I say what Gerrard did, I've got no real problem with. I understand why, or just a bit of banter, but it's the clingers on here, the fans of that lot across the city who are all using it as some kind of badge of honour. Wearing it's a badge of honour. I mean, there's a great Twitter account called Rangers Celebrating Imaginary Trophies, and it's the little gif from a game of FIFA where it's glitched out and the player's lifting up an invisible trophy. And anytime a Rangers fan puts anything, it's just a pure ridiculous thing to celebrate, he'll always quote retweet them with that gif on it. And I imagine that one was used quite heavily last night, because celebrate it all you want, because see, the end of the season when the real trophies get handed out, we'll see who's the ones that are smiling and laughing at the end of it all.
That's right. He can stick it. He can add that to his trophy haul at Rangers. Help him getting a noise out the Celtic fans. But like I said, yesterday was all about a good cause and supporting the Celtic FC Foundation and the LC Foundation's programme. So well done to the players for and the fans that made the trip down and those who did behave themselves. Okay, let's have a look at the next talking point. All right, Marky boy, the decision not to take Celtic star Kyogo to the World Cup at the end of 2022 is something that is driving the striker to hit new heights with Celtic. Instead of sulking about not getting into the national team for the major tournament, he has focused on what he can do at club level, and the Hoops have benefited greatly. Kyogo has been on fire this season and for the second time scored 2 goals in the League Cup final to win the trophy for the boys. The Japanese forward was again overlooked this international break by his country. It is baffling considering he is the highest scoring Japanese player in Europe this season, something that Kyogo himself has pointed out.
I think he's a great player. To be honest with you, I'm selfish. I hope the none of the players get picked because I don't want to see them get injured, but I do realise it's ambitions for players to play for their country, and it's an ambition a lot of them really want to live out before their career ends, and good luck to them all. I don't think he was getting games for Japan when he was playing in Japan, so it's no new. It isn't a thing that's happened because he's came to Celtic. I mean, he's came to Celtic to further his career, probably earn more money, and probably further his reputation. I don't think he's came to Scottish football to propel himself up the ladder for the Japan national team. So I don't think anybody that's maybe get worries that Celtic are maybe going to lose players like such as him because they're considering where playing for Celtic leaves them and their international hopes. It's always been the case. I mean, we had absolute genuine world class players in my opinion, like Alan Thompson, who for a time was one of the best players in Europe, doing what he was doing, and he only got 1-2 caps for England. They took Fraser Foster to be an absolute colossus for him to get a cap while playing for Celtic. So we've always had this problem no matter how good the league is, you know what I mean? The league is a poor standard just now, as we know, but it's always been. So I don't think players will be put off because of where Celtic are in the European where we are as a standard, you know what I mean? I think Celtic's get its own attractions. Kyogo, for me, if they've got better players than Kyogo, then there must be some excellent talent in Japan. They must have some really good strikers, and that's fine. I think it's Celtic's benefit because he's 28-year-old, I believe, and he does look like the kind of guy that sulks. I think he's the kind of guy that uses that as a motivation to make himself maybe a wee half a mile an hour faster, maybe score an extra couple of goals, maybe try and put himself in a position where he's too good not to be picked. I don't see him having like a sulking attitude like we might have seen with Jackie Marcus or this looks like Abada might have just now. I just don't see it. I don't think the guy's he's a classy individual. I mean, I think on and off the park he seems like a nice person, and I think we might see Kyogo stay us for the rest of his top class career because of his age, and I don't think he's the kind of guy that would agitate for moves or be put off signing at Celtic because he's not getting picked for Japan, because the reality was even guys like Hatate weren't getting picked for Japan before they came to Celtic. So nothing's changed. I think their career trajectory won't be dictated by Japan's minutes because they've got another couple of years before the World Cup starts, etc. So
yeah,
there's always time for these players. There's always time.
Yeah, I think it's perhaps a cultural thing as well with the Japanese players that they don't look too far ahead. They don't, and certainly don't sulk when things aren't going their way. Regan, the contradictory of the manager saying that he looks, well, it was only one of the reasons that he looks at the standard of the leagues that players are playing in. Of course, that's contradicted with Maeda being called up. So I think that also benefits us as Celtic fans, knowing that the players probably seeing that as well and going, right, well, it's not because I'm at Celtic that I'm not getting picked. I don't think Kyogo or Hatate moving to another club would then suddenly make them a standout for the manager. Because if Maeda is getting selected whilst playing in the same team as Kyogo and Hatate, then that suggests to me that maybe when he's talking about the standard of the leagues that the manager looks at, maybe Scotland isn't really in that category. Yeah. And maybe it is a playing style. Maeda is a certain style of player, Regan, and I think that he suits that particular Japanese national coach's style of football, and maybe Kyogo and Hatate just don't.
Yep, that's what I'm going
to do with what club they're at.
That's the exact point I want to make. I've thought about this over the past few weeks. I'm thinking, is it because the manager likes Maeda and he doesn't like Kyogo and Ryota? I'm thinking maybe it's just that the manager's got a certain style and those guys don't fit that style. Maybe once Japan get rid of this manager, they'll be straight in there. It's like Scotland. Steve Clarke has got his players that he trusts, and then he's got his players that he doesn't bring in. They probably want to be in the squad. You often get that with national managers. They stick by players who don't do so well at their club, but because they know I've had them in my squad for 10 years, so I know I can trust that guy. But I think there was somebody said that Kyogo's only had, is it 10 caps, 12 caps? So he's not played that often. So obviously the managers went, when he seen him, he went, no, it doesn't really fit into my system. I don't think it's down to Kyogo. It's probably down to the manager being a bit stubborn, probably.
Yeah, you could be right. You could be right, Regan. I mean, you have to just look at that Japanese national side, Phil. I don't know if you've really had a proper deep dive into the clubs that these guys are playing at, especially the midfield, where I think Atati's going to really struggle to get into that side. And we've watched him enough to know that Atati is a class player, and he probably could fit into any side in Europe. Personally, I mean, even like the Real Madrid game, for example, like to have the confidence in that game to create to do that pass sublimely and just to play with so much confidence with such a massive European club like Real Madrid, I think he could probably walk into any team. However, at the minute, the Japanese national side, a lot of their midfield players are playing in the likes of the German league. You've got the likes of even the boy at Brighton who's really coming on. I think Man United are now sniffing around him.
Oh, what player he is?
It's almost like, what it's like? It's almost like the whole Andy Murray situation, like an absolute class player.
Yeah.
Who probably would have hit even higher heights if it was the fact that he just happened to be in the same era of a Nadal and a Federer and a Djokovic. Yeah. Maybe that's the situation that Hatati finds himself in, is that he's an absolutely brilliant player, but he's just come along at the wrong time.
It could be a case of that because, that Japan team at the World Cup, they took quite a few people by surprise. Remember our reactions when we saw the only Maeda had been called up. Like, God, they must have some good players if that's the case. But they had a slow start. If I remember, then it was a game against Spain where it all just exploded into life. Although one of their goals was a tad controversial, if I remember correctly. The one that might have crossed the line. But yeah, it was. They did look like they had some really good technically gifted players. It's always been the case with the Japanese team. We knew it from the days of Nakamura playing for us. And when we're talking about, getting caps, stuff like that for Japan, it's not necessarily a Scotland issue because Nakamura was getting called up regularly. It's just a case of they've got a really good crop of players right now in the positions that some of our better players play in. And, a wee bit of a purple patch for the Japanese national team. Hatati will, get his caps and that eventually. But if Mark always says regarding the call-ups and stuff like that, if it's less games for him playing a season and he's playing more for Celtic, then so be it. I guess we can't really grumble about that. If he stays under the radar for the time being, then that's good. But yeah, he will have his time eventually, and he can just keep plying his trade for Celtic for the time being.
I think the likes of right now, I think the players we have that have signed, the Japanese players that have signed, have come to Celtic to play, obviously at a massive European club. And I think that's really keeping them quite content at the minute, and playing for an Ange Postecoglou. It will be interesting if and when Ange decides to leave Celtic, if he does any time in the future or if it's maybe in the next, hopefully never. But if he does leave, then do the Japanese players start to have one eye out the window? Only time will tell. I've seen an interesting comment brought up. It's probably too far up now, but I should have starred it. I do apologise.
No.
It was mentioned
Still getting used to the whole starring system.
The old starring system. South Korea is only slightly behind Japan in international rankings, and was called up and well done. Brilliant, Phil. What good work. It's not a Celtic issue. Interestingly, did get off the bench in the last international game that they played there. Funnily enough, it was actually Cho, the player that we were also linked with there in January, that actually started ahead of him. It's interesting to see how well Cho does at international level. He's obviously fancied by the Korean international manager, and I think he's...
David, can I quickly ask something regarding did we sign him from a team that were in the Korean second tier, or they were last season? But
they were last season.
That's interesting. He was getting caps when he was playing the second tier in the South Korea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got promoted last season, I believe.
David, did you notice who the South manager is Jurgen Klinsmann.
Jurgen Klinsmann.
Wow. It's funny what these guys will end up in their managerial careers. But I think O's he'll be pretty satisfied that he's getting a call up and he's getting game time there. So obviously I don't think we've got any worries about O at the minute. I'm looking forward to seeing him getting more game time. We're talking obviously earlier about whether Ange needs to maybe utilise his subs bench a bit more, Mark, and I really do fancy seeing O getting a wee bit more game time. But of course, it's very difficult to not start Kyogo. But even if we can get away to get the two guys playing together like we did in the Hibs game there, I think Kyogo dropped a little bit deeper into number 10 role, and obviously O got on and got that bullet header. So really excited to see a wee bit more of him.
I was quite interested to see him play. I mean, when I came on the park against Hibs, I was frustrated. I was like, well, we're not going to get to see this guy unless he gets game time. So let's just see what he can do, and he managed to get the winner. You know what I mean? And I was questioning myself what he was actually giving the team in terms of, but you know, Giakoumakis was a wee bit something different. I was wondering where he fits in, but it looked to me like he's a kind of similar player to Giakoumakis in every aspect. I mean, even when he scored the winner the other day, there, he kind of reminded me of his celebration last season. But I'm looking forward to seeing him. I'm looking forward to seeing Iwata. I'm really looking forward to seeing him as well.
Yeah.
I think we've got to utilise the squad at this time of the season, because I think Regan mentioned that you can't play 50 or 60 games a season without picking up injuries. And I don't like players coming in out the cold. I don't like us having a player who's not played in 2 months or played very, very limited minutes, and then all of a sudden, bang, an injury happens, and he's thrust out of the first team, and you go right into the first 11 in big matches, and you go, right, I think we don't know what we're going to get after this guy, and a wee bit more game time would have gave us a better idea of what he can give, but also give the guy a wee bit more a run up to it. You know what I mean? I don't think Ange is as bad at rotating the squad. I just think it's a weakness in him a wee bit sometimes. He's hesitating to bring in players. I mean, we all know Starfelt and Carter Vickers is a partnership you can't mess about with. But see, when you're 3, 4, 5-0 up, there's definitely time when to bring on Kobayashi. And Phil mentioned we've won a lot of games this season after January by 3, 4, 5 goals. He's right, but there's been games that we've been comfortable 2, 3-0 up that we could have brought on Iwata and brought on Kobayashi. It doesn't mean that players are getting dropped. They're just getting rested and a wee bit of fresh legs, and give the players, I think, who really need minutes. And there's a few in the Celtic Park who need minutes. I mean, it's no surprise he came in like Rusty.
Well, I believe Iwata did play under Ange when Ange was in charge in Japan. So I think we will see a lot more of Iwata, whether it's at the tail end of the season or maybe a lot more next season, depending on if anybody in the midfield does depart Celtic in the summer. So I think Ange knows what he's getting out of Iwata. Like I said, he's played with him. He's played under Ange already, and of course last season he was the J League Player of the Year, Regan. So I'm fairly confident Iwata will just become a mainstay in that midfield soon enough.
I think Iwata was the player we thought Abelgard was going to be. We thought Abelgard was going to come in and do well, but then Iwata's coming in with a big reputation. I think next season Iwata's going to be the first name in the team sheet, because for me, I think Moy's going to be a year older. I think Matt O'Reilly might go in the summer. He might look to offload David Turnbull, as Mark said a lot of times on the show before. I think if you lost David Turnbull, this is no disrespect to David Turnbull. Here, by the way, I think David Turnbull's a good player, but I think if you lost him, I wouldn't be greeting my bed all night. So I think if David Turnbull goes, if Matt O'Reilly goes, I think Iwata would be the perfect player to fit in that squad. I don't know what you guys think, but I think that would be the perfect solution.
Regan, you mentioned there you thought Abelgard was the player that Iwata is supposed to be. I think Abelgard was literally just a stopgap until Ange could sign Iwata. I think Ange made it quite clear that he wanted to sign Iwata, but he didn't want to absolutely destroy his former club squad and take Maeda and Iwata, probably the two best players from the past couple of seasons. So I think he's went, right, I'll get a stopgap on loan just now. Abelgard will get me to that point of the season, the January transfer window, and once the J League's over, I'll then sign Iwata. I think he made it quite clear that he did that out of respect. Ideally, I would have rather Ange didn't do that and just signed him in the first place. But okay, but of course, I get that side of things, Phil. It's just the way Ange operates, and you can't argue with it so far.
No, you definitely can't. His hit rate so far has been fantastic in terms of the ratio of players coming in that are success. Abelgard was definitely a stopgap. The very fact that when McGregor went down with an injury for, was it 12 or 13 games he missed, it was Abelgard wasn't trusted for the shot. It was Matt Riley had to drop back and play number 6 like that again. Similar, I said earlier on about the Bernabei and Juranovic thing at Ibrox. It spoke volumes of what Ange thought of some of his squad players when he does stuff like that. And Wata's definitely a player that I think next season will be getting a lot more game time. You know, he was a player of the year in Japan, so he's not going to come here and just sit on the bench. The Gucci thing when we signed him, he was obviously an anomaly to Ange's record so far of transfers, but I think it's been mentioned plenty of times that when we signed Maida and Hitati and Ideguchi, a lot of Japanese football experts out there were talking about how Ideguchi, but a surprise going for him. That one was it felt like Celtic were just getting him because they could, which again could have been another stopgap thing where Andrew's thinking, I'll get him in just now, see how it goes. And obviously it didn't work out for Ideguchi for numerous different reasons. But I think Iwata will be the polar opposite to that. I think once he does get up to speed, and Regan's right. Next season, Moy's going to be, what is he now, 32 just now, Moy?
I think so, yeah.
So obviously, I mean, at the end of the day, look, some football players can play to an obscene age and still produce the goods. So Moy, even at 33, would still probably be a decent player. But yeah, he's going to, his game time, you can't expect him to play 50 games a season or 50 games a year like you're talking about there. So I think Iwata will start to rotate in more for him. If O'Reilly was sold, for instance, we're going to need Iwata's services in there. And I could see him getting a lot more game time, and I'm pretty confident he will be on a level of Hitati once he gets up to full speed. And that's quite an exciting prospect, to say the least. Hitati and Iwata.
Where does Iwata sit in the midfield then, Mark? Does he move a bit further back into McGregor's role? Because he seems to be a bit more of a defensive. What he said, he enjoys stealing the ball, he enjoys the physical side of the game, breaking up play. Is that what he moves and McGregor moves forward, or does Ange tweak it slightly and put Iwata into that sort of where Moy's in that Moy role? So he's got like Moy and Hitati and then McGregor just sitting behind them. Where would you see him if he's going to be, as Egan says, the first player on the team sheet for Ange? Where does he sit in that midfield?
I think technically he's a number 6, but what we have noticed under Ange is a number 6 and a number 6. He's kind of like, he's there to cover the defence, and he's there to cover Greg Taylor particularly. But I think when Celtic are attacking, I mean, Callum McGregor can be just as far forward as any other player in the park, and I think that's where our number 6 is different. Where we're kind of like, we're more fluid in the midfield. I think if Iwata's got to come in, I don't think you can upset what Callum McGregor does. I think Sifi is absolutely the number 6 who kind of play the number 8 role as well. Let him be. Don't interrupt that. Just leave it as is. If Iwata is kind of guy that likes to make a lot of interceptions and get involved in the play, he can play where Moy's playing just now. They do it better. You know what I mean? Because you all see a lot of game. You all see a lot of the ball, but you also, with Celtic are transitioning into defence. There are going to be times when you're going to have to step up and step out and take the ball. And I think the guy that's capable of doing that, he's so comfortable on the ball. I've noticed that about him. Probably almost like the kind of player that we play against in Europe. They just seem to just so comfortable with the ball at their feet, and the kind of player that Celtic, I've always wanted Celtic to have. I've really excited about this guy. I've only seen about 3 or 4 occasions where I've seen him in the flesh, and I've been really happy with what I've seen of the guy. I think Ange knows him better than anybody. If he's played with him before, then that makes you think that Ange really knows that he can settle into this team quicker than maybe a player who's played with before, you know what I mean? And I think next season, I think Regan's right, next season looks like it's going to be his time at Celtic, and I don't know if I think O'Reilly and Turnbull might be sold. I think the two of them will probably go. So that opens up that area of the midfield, and I think he might be competition for Moy. Moy's going to be a year older. I think Moy is very mobile, so he's probably capable of playing another season at Celtic and probably not having too many issues, but Awata's got a longer term contract, and I think Awata might just step in, and I think we might see him playing the right hand side of that wee pivot we've got there.
Yeah, Brown Warrior rightly corrects me. McGregor role as a sort of deep lying playmaker. What I meant with Awata was, he does seem to be a bit more defensive minded. So does he put a bit more steel into that midfield, Regan?
Yeah, I think he will do, David, and I think that's the interesting thing, that Ange knows the guy. He knows where he's best suited, and I think that's the interesting and probably the most the intriguing thing for next season, because nobody really knows what's going to happen. But suppose the benefit for Ange is he knows him very well, and he can say, right, well, and I think personally, I think Awata will be in his first 11.
I think it'd be interesting to, like, the way Ange, like saying, Ange has obviously worked with him in Japan, Phil, and now he's brought him to Scotland. Now the J League and the Scottish League are very different. Do you think maybe Ange has seen, well, actually, your attributes would maybe suit you slightly different in Scotland than they did in Japan, so I'm going to try playing you in this role than you were doing in Japan. I think that's quite a possibility.
I would say I would imagine the Scottish League is a lot more physical, a lot more hammer throwers in this league. That's one thing he's going to have to contend with. I don't think you'll get many cloggers out in the Japanese league, but he does look like he has got a bit of steel and he can stand up to it a wee bit. It's one of these things that many Celtic fans have talked about over the last year, and I think it was all born out of when we played Rangers in that semi-final last year, and Lundstrom was allowed to do anything he wants, and we had this idea in our head, right, we need somebody that's going to basically kick them back in a bit of physicality, but I just don't think Ange is really, for that prototype big bully centre midfielder that's going to just get stuck. I don't think that's his style. He wants to just beat them by playing football. He's like, we'll just tire them out and just pass the ball around them, and that's why I think he goes for more technically gifted players, and Awata definitely looks to be that. Obviously, we know Hatate's that, so I think the plan is really to just wear them down by passing it around them, make them chase it. And yeah, that's more, rather than, well, we'll just take the fight to them, an eye for an eye. We'll just get a big bully centre midfielder that can just get stuck into people. But yeah, he does have a bit of steel about him anyway. But I think ultimately his goal is going to be, just beat them with finesse, essentially, outskill them essentially. Because if they've not got the ball, then they can't score, they can't be a threat. So just make sure you just keep the ball off them, and that's, I think, what Ange's plan will be with the tactics. So up against the more physical teams, it will still be a case of, no, we'll keep doing what we do. And that is the thing about Ange. It's all that, we never stop thing, and it's not just a buzzword or like a, for a t-shirt or anything like that. It's literally like, this is a plan of how we're going to play. We're going to keep playing it regardless, and fair play to him because it works. Clearly works for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, to finish off the show, guys, we'll just make a quick mention that Callum McGregor made his 50th cap appearance for Scotland yesterday. So big congratulations to the captain. I believe he got man of the match yesterday as well, Mark. I mean, Callum McGregor, we're starting to run out of things to say about him, really.
I think when you get 50 caps for Scotland, you get into the Hall of Fame, is that right, as well? So
yep.
It's another wee badge to add to his career so far. He's got like 20 trophies for Celtic, and he's been an absolute class act for Celtic. If he on and off the park, I never saw one bit of bad press about the boy. He just seems to carry himself like a Celtic player should. He's just always. People spoke about Paul McStay not living up to the captain's role, although he was a fantastic football player. A lot of folk thought there was something missing in him. And to be honest with you, I felt Callum McGregor might have that missing as well. But by God, he's proved me wrong. I think he's a brilliant captain for Celtic, and I think if the guy retires at Celtic, I think he'll be a bona fide club legend, and he's probably turned into a Scotland legend as well. So good on him, and I hope he gets many more, but as long as it doesn't detriment Celtic at all. But good on him. Pleased for the guy.
Regan, you got anything to add to that before we go?
He's probably just a great role model for the football player, as Mark said there. He does everything well. He's a great professional. He's known on social media as well, and he just seems to take everything in his stride and does really well. So no, I think he's doing well, and he'll probably add more and more trophies for Celtic as well, and hopefully takes Scotland to another European Championships as well.
Phil, anything to add, mate?
I don't think there is much to add. He has
difficult,
been a
innit?
phenomenal player. Phenomenal servant. I mean, I think this season he also passed over 400 games for Celtic. I think it was when we beat Dundee United just at the end of January. That was his 400th appearance. When I was talking about Scott Brown the other night, and obviously he's had a huge influence on McGregor, and Brown played 620 games. McGregor, at his age right now, he'll surpass Brown's tally of games. I think he'll be, he'll play until his sort of mid-30s anyway. And the captain's armband. I mean, people had, at the start, I remember there was a few doubts. Some fans were like, is McGregor the right choice for captain because of the way Brown was, because everyone has an idea in their head of how a captain should be. And after Brown being captain for so long, I think a lot of fans are like, oh, can McGregor just be stepping that role? I think he does the captain's role brilliantly. He just does it different from how Brown did it. You can be a captain in different ways, and I think he shows that. Phenomenal player. I always admire as well in this style of play that Ange has got us doing, this sort of high-risk football where there's a lot of passing around the back. McGregor's always shown for the ball. He's always there as like an extra body. Like the cup final recently, there was that wee period where Rangers had his sort of, we're in the trenches for about 15 minutes in the second half, and again, we're sticking to our guns, but McGregor's always that extra body that goes back in front of the back, shows for the ball and tries to get things going. I always admire that in him. So he's a phenomenal player, been a phenomenal servant up to now, and still a good few more years to come. Many more Scotland caps and many more Celtic appearances, and particularly many more trophies to come at Celtic as well.
Yeah, nicely rounded off. Well, guys, that's just been just over the hour, so we'll wrap things up. I just want to thank everyone for joining us again on the Sunday Blether. We've got the excuse me, clear my throat there. Jeez, I've been holding that in for the whole hour nearly, by the way. So Phil, Mr. Friday night, thanks for joining us. The dirtiest player in the game. The dirtiest player in the game, the face that runs the place, Regan Stevenson. Thanks very much for joining me.
No problem, thank you.
The bad guy, the judge, Mark Kearney. Always a pleasure, guys. Remember, guys, hard work pays off, dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
See you later, guys. See ya.
When you've all that stuff at the start, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.